Well, for the first time since 2008, the Green Party has a new leader. Janine Gibson takes over from James Bedom, who had led the party for some 15 years in this province. Gibson is a Steinbach area farmer and an agricultural consultant. She's running in the Winnipeg riding of Wolseley in this upcoming provincial election. Welcome, Janine Gibson, to CBC. Thank you for making time for us.
Oh, thank you, Marcy. It's great to be here.
So the Greens have never won a seat in Manitoba. You're hoping to change that. How optimistic are you can make that happen?
Well, this is a time that needs change. It really depends on the people of Wolseley. They've come so close to electing a Green MLA in the past. I'm hoping that they will continue with that motivation and know that we need to make changes for a more sustainable future here in Manitoba.
Why have you chosen Wolseley? What's your connection to that city riding?
Well, I was born in Wolseley. I've spent a lot of my younger years in Wolseley. My kids' first school was Wolseley, so I have a lot of connections in that area. There's a lot of organic businesses that support organic food production, which I've been involved in for the last 30 years. So it's the part of the city that I have the strongest connections with.
You, prior to winning the Green Party leadership, had run 7 times federally, put your name forward, and 3 provincial elections previously as well. What drives you to keep vying for office?
The basic values of health, ecology, fairness, and care, which I've based my life upon. They're the foundational values of the organic agriculture system, which I've been working in for the last 30 years. Longer, my whole life, if you consider all the garden work. My grandparents didn't call themselves organic farmers, but that's what they were. And just bringing that, seeing the Green Party reflecting those values, wanting to work for a healthy environment and healthy people, and I don't see that commitment as deeply and as profoundly reflected in other parties. So I've been an activist, and then not seeing the accountability in government that I felt was necessary. It's a platform, and I believe that we need to speak up when we feel profoundly about things.
Given what you've said about how concerned people are about the world right now when it comes to climate change, when it comes to issues which would naturally be part of your party's platform,
yes.
How do you explain the lack of the Green Party's traction with voters?
Well, for one thing, there are a lot of people who are very disaffected. You mentioned my history in running. The most common statement I received in all of those, I thought it was 9 times federally, but I'm sure your research is better than mine, 7, was thank you for running, thank you for diversity on the ballot. I wouldn't be voting if I didn't have a Green choice. So there's a huge part of our population, I think it's close to 50%, that are very disengaged from our democratic system. That's one of the reasons Greens thinks we need to make our democracy more vibrant with moving away from first past the post to proportional representation.
So you think that those who have been disengaged
yes.
may look to vote Green in
yes.
this moment? Has it been a missed opportunity, though, up to this point? Because it's certainly not the opportunity to vote Green and the focus on climate change and the emergency we have globally has existed 4 years ago, 8 years ago in Manitoba. So why in 2023 do you think there'll be a breakthrough?
Well, because we came so close in 2019 and 2016 in Wolseley. I think, look at the smoke. Look at the effect of people on their breathing, the amount of I think the reality of the climate emergency is hitting home more for people, especially for our young ones. You know, those who are just launching in the world are not feeling hopeful. But the Green Party says, yes, we can have a healthy environment. We can have healthy people. We can have a more fair, kind economy. And these, along with a dynamic democracy, are what we need for a sustainable future. So I think there are more people ready to hear our message of hope.
Speaking of specific promises, one of your campaign promises is to induce a fair, free public transit system. Mm-hmm. How much would that cost to be able to put that forward to people to have it be fair, free?
We haven't, being a general overview party, we're not under any delusion we're going to be government in Manitoba. So we see ourselves as the conscientious reminders. So we haven't done a cost analysis of that, other than I have read studies that show it actually saves money in the long run. If you help people get to where they need to be, like one of the best social programs in the world is a good job for people. So help people get to find the jobs, help them get to their jobs, help them get to their education. And so it's sort of of like being penny wise and pound foolish in our view. But basically, our basic sort of funding mechanism is just like we needed peace bonds, war bonds in the Second World War to motivate and mobilize. We need green bonds now to mobilize for the kind of massive changes we need, the green jobs for the economy, you know, and the environment at the same time, so that they're not seen as separate.
Just to widen it out, what do you see as the biggest issue facing Manitobans today?
Well, for me personally, it's the lack of food security. Our food production system is so over-industrialized. We're so dependent on food coming from so far away. So it's the basics of food, housing, and clean water. You know, we need strong stewards to protect our water purity. It's under attack. We need to ensure that people have enough food to eat and good housing. These are all part of a fair economy that we don't see happening to the degree that it needs to.
And what practical solutions do you have to some of the issues you've raised as
Well, a green MLA will work for improved health, both preventative health care. We have a platform. I certainly don't have time today to go into it with you, but we have a platform that's well developed on how we need to do more preventative health work and support our current healthcare system and address housing. We think the basic income guarantee would go a long way to solving all these basic needs and helping people feel more secure and healthy, and pursue the training that we think needs to be instituted on a massive scale.
You're part of an advocacy group, Our Line in the Sand, which is against a proposed wide-scale silica mining operation in southern Manitoba.
Yes.
Which CBC's been doing extensive reporting on. How worried are you about that project?
I've been extremely active, giving it a great deal of my volunteer time since 2019, because I just saw the lack of true responsibility and sincerity in the proponents. I mean, I write technical reports for a living on the processes and the facilities I audit, so I could see the glaring gaps, and I just did not see the Manitoba government interacting with this company in the best interest of our citizens. It just seems dollar signs get in people's eyes, and they lose the importance of clean water to all the businesses and all the families in southeastern Manitoba.
So you feel strongly that this has a potential to be a threat to the water system?
Absolutely. Basic science. You know, you take out something from the bottom, everything else is going to collapse down.
Would you allow more research on it, or do you feel so strongly that you think already this should be a no?
Personally, I think there's no way it can be done safely. I do put my faith in a balance of science and land knowledge. I think too many of our systems have not respected the First Nations process of healing circles, and I think our government needs a healing circle for addressing things like this. Resource extraction without First Nations being right at the table from the very beginning, and that's not happening. There's no free, prior, and informed consent happening in Manitoba, to the best of my knowledge.
Is there a top threat to the environment in our province that you would identify?
Well, I would say this mining. You know, the way the current government is saying, we're open for business, come on. Well, our fresh air is already being impeded in many communities by our industrial hog production system. And then you add the concerns of mining, draining lakes, interfering with our watersheds. These are basic, we're part of the biology that depends on these watersheds. So I'm really concerned about the mining strategy and just the lack of foresight I'm seeing in government planning.
People can hear a little bit about your commitment to the land, and that is how you live. You co-founded a solar-powered co-op farm south of Steinbach. Yes. That was 40 years ago.
Yes.
Just in our last minute, how off the grid is your operation? And tell me a little bit about that part of Janine Gibson, why that's your commitment.
Well, my father brought Rachel Carson's book Silent Spring into the household when I was 12, and I saw that pollution is damaging the natural world, and I wanted to do my best to change it. And now I read A Good War by Seth Klein that says we need to mobilize now to protect our natural world. So 40 years ago, I did not want to give Manitoba Hydro any money because I didn't like how they were managing Lake Winnipeg. And now we have Norway House and all of the hydro-affected communities saying the erosion, the lack of the maintenance of the riparian area around the lake. Yes, it's wonderful to have green electricity. I chose solar and wind to model for others. We can do it a different way and still have a quality of life by living closer to the land, closer to nature, respecting one another and the environment.
Janine Gibson, thank you for your time and good luck on October 3rd.
Thank you so much, Marcy.